On Thursday, February 27th, graduate and undergraduate students of UCR gathered at Hinderaker Hall to perform a sit-in next to Chancellor Kim Wilcox's office. The sit-in was part of a larger statewide movement that is continuously protesting in solidarity with the striking grad students of UC Santa Cruz. UC Santa Cruz graduate students have been striking in an attempt to renegotiate their union contract in favor of a COLA stipulation. COLA stands for Cost of Living Adjustment. Grad students across the UC have demonstrated their frustration with the UC's low pay and are actively trying to receive a fair wage for their labor. KUCR was on the scene.
So hi, my name is Margarita Vizcarra. I'm a graduate student in the School of Education, PhD.
My name is Yahaira Calderon. I am a PhD student also in the School of Education.
Yeah, so here today we are in support of the UC strikers in Santa Cruz. So we are essentially the organizers for UCR for COLA, a solidarity movement that's meant to bring awareness about what's happening in Santa Cruz and essentially how the institution of University of California is responding to the demands of their workers. So here today we are having the event Pizza with Kim. So we bring the pizza, as you can see. Tons of pizza. We got some vegan options as well. So we bring the pizza. Kim should bring the cola, right? So by cola, we mean bring awareness to the cola movement, making sure that people know about what's happening in Santa Cruz and that he pressures his peers, right? That he pressures them in Santa Cruz and tells them you need to sit down with the strikers and have a conversation because this affects not just Santa Cruz, but everybody that's a student, that is a learner, that is an educator in the UC system. Yeah.
We've done various events throughout the last 2 weeks here at UCR, and we originally demanded that he do a public statement where he's denouncing the threats by Gianna Napolitano, who is the UC president, but he hasn't done anything so far, so this is why today we're holding this action to further pressure, but also demand that he really does something about it, because again, like Margarita says, it doesn't just affect Santa Cruz, it affects all UC students, all UC campuses.
Hi, my name is Orlando Caballo. I'm an undergraduate student, but I'm in the student government and other political organizations. And, you know, I think the main reason why I'm here at this, on the picket line today during the sit-in is primarily just because, like, the inequality that graduate students have to endure. This movement is, like, spread from the UCSC region all the way to places like UC Riverside. I think UC Santa Barbara just voted to go on strike today, because the wages that these people have to endure is unbearable. They make around $17,000, $18,000, $19,000 a year. That's about the poverty line. I think in UCSC they're spending about 60 to 70% on rent alone, and I think that needs to stop. Not only for the graduate students' sake, but also undergrads. Since if graduate students don't know where they're going to get their next meal, how are they going to teach their students?
I'm just standing here, that's all. That's locked? We can't go in. Is Chancellor Wilcox?
He is. He's not available right now.
Hi. When will he be available?
I'm George. I'm the front desk person here in the kind of area. So, our procedure is, can I help you? What can I help you with?
Yes, I would like to submit this letter in person to you.
Okay, I can take that more. I understand you want to do that more. So let me go and relay that back to him. Okay. Just understand that because it's like 100 of you and 1 of me, I feel like
it's not 100.
That's why I'm out here. The best we can do to like kind of pressure him over this, it makes me feel better. So if we can do that. So, can we say, all right, give me a
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, how are you doing?
Excuse me, sir.
Nice to see you again. So, I'm sure that you might have heard or seen the invitation.
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw there was an invitation to my house.
Yes. So we brought the pizza.
Oh,
We're
thank you.
hoping that you have the cola.
I,
Right?
I only have bubbly in my office.
We waxed for cola, right? So essentially, we're just asking that you look at this letter, which states again what we've already done. On Friday, we already handed you a letter, essentially explaining that you should need to be talking to UC Santa Cruz. Additionally, we went to the academic senate meeting. You saw us there. Dr. Rodriguez had an explanation as to why this cause is important, right? And we still haven't received a response. So we are expecting something of you denouncing what what the administration in Santa Cruz is doing, along with Janet Napolitano's efforts, right, to fire your workers.
I can tell
fire
you,
workers.
Vice Chancellor Haynes and I actually met last night with the Executive Council of the Graduate Student Association here at Riverside to talk through the kind of the graduate student perspective on this.
Yeah.
And so we're working hard to actively engage. I have talked, as I said before, I've been in communication with both the President and the Chancellor at Santa Cruz.
Yeah, but we're honestly expecting official letter from both of you, or at least from you, saying that you do not agree with the tactics that the institution is using to bring down the strikers.
It's difficult to engage in the middle of a union relationship. There are state and federal laws that determine how management and employees relate, and that is importantly through the union, through the union leadership.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for management, for me to engage in that without direct route through the union leadership.
Yes,
That's
as union members, we're all gathered
Yeah.
here in support of our striking siblings at Santa Cruz, and that's the most important thing. The reason why so many people are here is because they care about the status of those workers, and that's why we're here today, is to seek a remedy for them.
And I appreciate that, and I agree. The status and the kind of the work environment and compensation for the students and the workers is the key piece. And again, we have to fully respect the role of the union in negotiating that relationship. And so that's
Yes.
also part of what, at the end of this, how hopefully there'll be changes in compensation, lots of other things will happen, but at the end, if we don't have the sanctity of the union role in this, then we're at risk in the longer term. And that's
There's
part
also-
of the consideration.
There's
Well,
also the sanctity
yes.
and role of the people.
Yes.
Yes.
Right? I think something that we are understanding through this COLA movement is there are a lot of people that are not necessarily working through the union, but they understand the importance of the union, and therefore all these people are here to support the people that they engage with, because they understand that this is a trickle-down type of injustice, right? That essentially union workers are being used as pawns. Right? That essentially don't get to say what is it that we get to demand and say how is it that we're doing this.
I don't know if that's quite true. The notion of unionization is collective bargaining. And so the collective in this case is all of the teaching assistants in the University of California. And that voice was brought to the negotiating table a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. That's where the voice is.
But as a union, we have filed grievances for all the striking Santa Cruz workers, and that's a union-sanctioned thing that all of our members are in support of, and that's the number one reason we're here, to support that grievance and to support those workers not being terminated.
And I think we all support the students, and we all support the employees, and we have to find the right solution to this. That we're in agreement on that. How we get there, we're kind of in the tactic mode right now.
So based on what you already said, that this is a union and this is a labor issue, therefore you will not release a statement essentially saying that you denounce the tactics.
It's difficult for
Of
me
the
to
institution.
engage in the active relationship between the union and the university, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a statement of no?
Will you speak with our union officers?
Sure. I said sure real quickly because I have to think about not compromising the union management role. I'm not the authorized negotiator with the union. Now I can tell you,
Along with Paul Wood.
yeah,
Would you speak with
I can tell you, and I think maybe you know this. I do have a regular, I guess twice a year meeting with union leadership on the campus, and that includes leaders of all the unions on the campus. When I do that, I have to be careful. I always start every one of those meetings with the statement that we can't talk about bargainable pieces at that discussion, because that's not appropriate and probably not legal. But the rest of the campus and important issues of individuals and work environment and the rest are things we can talk about. So if we're careful about the nature of the topics, yeah, I'm always, like I said, yeah, right away, I'm always ready to talk with people, and certainly the union leaders. Yeah.
I think it would be great to
As long as we understand the ground rules.
to arrange a meeting
Good.
with all these people and our union leaders to talk about supporting the Santa Cruz grievances and not terminating those workers.
Good. Good. Yep. I'm ready.
Okay.
In fact,
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to us. We couldn't open the door.
exactly. We're going to try to find a meeting. I'm not sure who's designated to try to coordinate a time. I'll let somebody work with George.
And Margarita.
Marguerite? We're going to find
Especially if I still.
No, Santa Barbara has like some big thing going on right now. They have a live stream.
There is no update. They're not letting us know what the date is. We would appreciate if there's some swiftness in trying to set a date. Like you said, everybody has stuff to do. I have stuff to grade. I have students to look at their projects. I have tons of things to do. All of us have tons of things to do. Please get on this date. We will be here until you give us a date.
That's right.
Folks, make yourself comfortable. Sit down, right? If you're willing and able to. Got a little hot. I know it got a little hot.
As a result of the sit-in, Chancellor Wilcox agreed to meet with the graduate students the following day at 3 p.m. KUCR was on the scene.
So, first and foremost, we feel that the police action and the presence on UC campuses has been misused recently, particularly the shameful events that occurred at UC Irvine really demonstrate that UCPD is the wrong tool to deal with workers who are demanding a cost of living adjustment and demonstrating peacefully, and that the problems of reactionary racism remain prevalent even among officers at the UCPD.
Particularly among officers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we demand that the Chancellor refuse to allow UCR police to be loaned out to other campuses for the control of labor unrest, and to work with UCOP to reduce the presence of police and surveillance on UC campuses.
The police piece, I agree, the notion that it's a UCR kind of specific thing, that's another one I literally have to learn about. I haven't, in terms of the contract there. I believe that the contract calls for, they call it mutual support, I think is the term of choice. Mutual assistance, thank you. So I'm not sure what the contractual or legal obligations are there, but I'll certainly look into that. I think the chancellors all agree that and including Cindy at Santa Cruz, that the police presence was overwrought. I think we all agree with that, and that it was unnecessary and probably harmful.
I think the crux of our demand is around the fact that police are being used as a first response tool to deal with labor unrest, and we feel like these are workers who are demonstrating peacefully on UC campuses, and whether they're causing a traffic disruption or not, I think sending out men with guns and batons to put them down is just not a productive way to deal with it.
Thank you, and I think we all agree on that, and I believe I'm not overstating when I say that the Chancellor at UC Santa Cruz agrees with that now too. So it's not quite the mutual assistance piece, but the use, I think, is a finer point. Thank you.
But even if we must push on that idea of mutual assistance, us ourselves at UCR have had issues with police on campus, right? The stuff that's happened this past summer, right? That we've had multiple instances of black students being harassed. Myself and one of the other organizers have had to come out of class while we were TAing because a student told us the cops are harassing a student. We walked outside. As soon as they saw that we were watching, they turned around. Right? So it's not mutual this portion of like mutual assistance makes much difference if some of these issues of discrimination are still happening on the campus, and that history is very short, right? So it's not like this was 20 years ago, this was 30 years ago, this continues to happen, right? So I think that that's something that also needs to be taken
And did you
into
report that
consideration.
to Christine's office, or somebody?
Somebody?
No.
Okay.
We're not told who to
We're
report
not
things
told
like
to,
this
yeah,
to.
who to
The
report that
visibility
to.
of that, okay.
Yeah.
There's
Even-
also the issue, like I will sit out with the undergrads on Wednesdays and help them table. I have witnessed multiple PD officers here stop and talk to Turning Point USA, who are essentially a hate group, who have a list of like left-leaning teachers and faculty and staff on their site. They should not be talking to them. They should not be joking with them. They should not be fist bumping with them. They should not be friends.
The second related demand is non-retaliation for striking workers at UC Santa Cruz over the cost of living issue. So the UCOP has threatened twice, and now we've learned a couple hours ago today, finally sent out dismissal letters to students participating in the cost of living wildcat action at UC Santa Cruz. And so we demand that the Chancellor advocate for non-retaliation against these students who are demonstrating peacefully for a decent standard of living, and instead encourage UCOP to engage in good faith bargaining and negotiation per our third demand.
Yeah, I can't say that. It's one of the things that's not in my purview, and so
Okay. I thought it wasn't related to labor at all. Like, should they have their jobs taken? Like,
This is one of the things where
why can't they keep their?
That's labor.
we're asking
It's
you.
not within the union. It's
The-
just why you
it is.
stripping
That's-
people's jobs.
The point is that we know that you can't give anyone at Santa Cruz their jobs back. You are still an influential individual who other chancellors and people at the UCOP will listen to. And I think if you are clear with them when you say, you know, I think this is a counterproductive action, and I think that these students should not be dismissed, you know, even if you can't snap your fingers and make it so, we'd appreciate those words coming out of your mouth.
Your endorsement.
I'm straight, I can't do that.
Our third demand is just reiterating our demand to bargain, which we delivered several weeks ago. UAW 2865 has submitted a lawful demand to bargain over a cost of living adjustment for its members, and independent COLA for all movements on UC campuses are demanding that a resolution be applied equitably to all UC grad students. And this demand is valid as such an adjustment is not currently discussed under the existing collective bargaining agreement, and attempts to negotiate a resolution to the issue that exclude the UAW constitute an unfair labor practice per our filing yesterday. So we demand that the Chancellor express to Janet Napolitano and the UC Regents the urgent need to open bargaining over a binding contract article to establish a cost of living adjustment for TAs, tutors, and readers, which should additionally be applied to all graduate students, similar to the way that graduate student health insurance coverage and other benefits covered under the UAW 2865 collective bargaining agreement have been applied to many other UC workers. UAW 2865 is the legal representative of teaching assistants, tutors, and readers, but as any other classes of graduate student workers must also live in Riverside on a UC wage, we feel they should be represented at the bargaining table by elected representatives of any independent COLA for all movement.
Yeah, I can't do that. Not saying I can't at some other future time, but right now I can't make those commitments. I don't want to say something I'm not going to be able to follow through on. I want to have a full conversation, but I want to be respectful of boundaries. So when we meet a couple times a year, I usually start the conversation with, it's important for all of us, I think, that we respect what belongs to the collective bargaining process and what belongs to us. And so that's why I was kind of the campus specific and the statewide, I think, is a nice way to think of that. A lot of the campus specific things we're not going to bump into the union piece. I take your point on several of these about, and I think it's next week we have a Council of Chancellors meeting.
Yes, next week.
So the 10 chancellors will be together with the president next week. This is an agenda item, no surprise, I think. So this is a chance for me to do some of these things and have that conversation with the president. Part of the conversation, I'm guessing, will be next week about precedent. We have, I don't know how many contracts, 15, 20 or more in different groups. And so there undoubtedly is fear among some that if you sign a multi-year contract, then it really isn't a multi-year contract. I'm not trying to blow smoke, I'm just talking about. And so that's a challenge to get over in in perception and in reality, I suppose.
I think telling them that 9 UCs are standing up in unison and calling out for it to be renegotiated is a good precedent.
But again, it's not necessarily a good precedent if you're worried about chaos in contracts.
It would prevent chaos.
Well, maybe.
I think our position is that the reason it's not a precedent setting in such a way that would throw out all multi-year binding contracts is that a cost of living adjustment is not something that's explicitly referenced in our contract. And so it's an out of contract issue that's affecting our members, and we need to negotiate on that specific issue. You know, in addition to these 3 primary demands that we have, we feel that the situation for graduate students on campus doesn't seem to be measurably improving. In fact, it seems to be deteriorating whenever we hear about cuts to funding for services like this, you know? So I just think in order to have a conversation where, or have a campus climate where graduate students feel like they're valued, I don't think a discussion of how we're going to find $100,000 at UC Riverside is really one that, like, I can, you know, I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say I just don't take that seriously.
I'm with you.
Like,
I take your point. Let's talk big here. So give me and I'm not disagreeing at all with the fact that things seem to be getting worse, not better. Talk to me about that if you could, more broadly.
Yeah, where to begin?
Yeah, where do you want us to start?
Yeah.
Well, the things that are most important to you from where you sit.
Well, related to these 3 demands and like cost of living, should we just throw out like what we make and stuff? Like my first year, $1,412 a month to live off of.
And feed yourself.
Yeah, like that's what what you live off of. Mental health concerns.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that with our UCR for COLA group.
At the moment, I guess like the wait list is about 6 weeks to get mental health. We're also having to share that with the undergrads, right? So that means that if we're at a time of crisis, right? And I used to work in high schools. I used to assist students when they were in times of crisis, right? And so that those are immediate needs, right? And to have people that are actually trained and understanding what a graduate student's going through. Right.
And that's something that we've in student affairs, especially myself and my counterpart who are 7 months in, have realized. And so right now what we're working on is laying down some of the infrastructure to expand those services and be creative, just like other private services do. Zoom, expanding it in different ways, taking a look at different angles and how to streamline our processes to open it up more, looking at how our workflow to figure out how can we fit more students and how can we connect more students sooner. And so those are the things just that you just described are at the forefront of what we're doing right now. So we are working on those issues. We wish we could get them done today right now, but we are assessing the situation, and I do agree that we do need to do more work in that area.
And we've also, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and I and the Dean of the Graduate Division have had several conversations about the reality that historically graduate students haven't been as central to some of these discussions as they should have been, particularly on the side of the services provided. So we are trying to, in Christine's hopefully trying to turn that leaf, and I would agree there's lots of work that we need to do there.
At the same time that we're doing these things, we're moving to monetize as many parking spaces as possible. So like the church parking over on Blaine, as well as the structure of parking down in University Village, those are now fully paid. And that's impacting us where it's extracting more of our wealth when we're already on the border of poverty just across the board in the best of circumstances. So I think that one of the ways that we can sort of work on this as a campus-specific solution is really having committees with graduate student leadership articulating these concerns and then powering forward on actually finding solutions.
Great. That's a great example. I don't know if it's board by policy, I think it's state law. The auxiliaries, parking included, have to be self-supporting. So we can't put any state money or tuition money into parking lot construction or parking garage construction. It has to be funded, and managing and permits and all that has to be funded by parking fees. Now, we can assess any fee we want to whomever we want. So we could double all the faculty fees and make all the student fees zero. And I'm not saying we should, but that's the kind of conversation I think the campus should have.
Right.
As what is a more progressive rather than regressive parking fee structure.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's,
conversation
I think
worth
that's a good
having.
conversation.
Two cents on that. So does that mean that y'all would be willing to change the fees? So if you get a ticket for the city of Riverside, it's about $46. On campus right now, it's $77.
I can't. I'll stop.
I mean, like, right?
These are examples of places where we are being monetized on campus just
Yeah.
across the board, and the costs just keep going up,
Yeah.
and the rate of pay just is not keeping track. And while you don't have control over the statewide conversation with the legal representation,
We could take a look at that.
If we're getting a livable wage, why is it that we are going to our pantry? That's just a question, right? If we have a livable wage, why is it that there's consistent like workshops from different departments that say like, hey, let's get on food stamps, right? If we had that right, and even when you do try to get on food stamps your first year, you can't because you don't actually have a job. So then the state actually tells you no, you can't get that. So, and they're probably not going to give me that much. One, because I'm single, I don't have a child, right? Mm-hmm. So that also impacts it. But at the end of the day, whatever resources you're telling me that you could possibly get, I wasn't able to, and that's the story with a lot of folks, right? But I think that those questions need to be in the back of our heads. If we were getting paid enough, why is it that we have to resort to these other sources?
Our departments will order all the food that they can and tell graduate students specifically to bring Tupperware, bring baggies, so we can have food at home.
Yeah, to be clear, the number I threw out, that was a fully funded fellowship. Like, people are doing much worse.
And yeah, people make less than that on their first year fellowships in some departments. Specifically, I know EEOB has been in conversations with the administration around this issue. And I think, we hear the multiple angles that you and other UC administrators are working on these issues. We appreciate those efforts. I just think, like, we've got to find out some way to catch up so that we aren't always coming to you, so far behind. Because in that interim, there are grad students who are having mental health crises, who are hungry, who are struggling to afford rent, who are going into debt, taking out student loans.
Or going through your retirement funds.
Yeah.
Both of your retirement funds. They're gone.
Yeah.
So that was my safety net. My safety net's gone. That's fine, right? And that shouldn't be at the expense of us getting an education. We do this because we love it. We love doing research. We love doing work with students. But that's the sacrifice that we go through, right? And it shouldn't be like, well, if you wanted to be an academic, that's what you need to go through. I don't think that that's fair. I also want to essentially also give some, that we can essentially set the pace for the rest of the UC, right? At the end of the day, we can say UCR did right by their students, and hopefully the other institutions do the same, right? Because I think that that's all we want, right? We're not asking for more than we deserve. I think we're asking for just a bare minimum.
I was just gonna say, like, I think what we're talking about here are like larger systemic changes instead of programmatic changes, which we do appreciate and that help, but without the systemic changes, it's just like a bunch of performative diversity and inclusion rhetoric, which is campus is like becoming known for, but the students don't feel, the staff don't feel. Increasingly faculty have been more vocal about their conditions too. Like, can we move past the rhetoric and actually make change?
And I think one of the best ways to do that is come to the bargaining table. I think until we see contractual obligations between the university and good faith negotiation, then I don't really trust that these things are secure. I don't really believe that we're being taken seriously as parties that need to be on the forefront of determining where this university is going, what conditions are going to look like for workers here.